Hello and welcome. I'm Micah, the cosplayer seamstress. Today we're going to be making the jacket for the 1940s inspired outfit. But before that, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
The materials I will need for this project are green thread, the green cotton fabric, the interfacing the shoulder pads, the pattern with instructions, scissors, both fabric and paper, a handheld needle, and the sewing machine. I also will use white thread later, I just didn't show that here. If you would like to know where I got the fabric, interfacing shoulder pads and pattern, and how much they cost, check out the patterns and plans video on my channel. The first step to any project is cutting the pattern. To figure out which pieces I needed, I referenced the pattern itself. For the jacket, I will need pieces 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. This is the rest of the pattern pieces. Once I've determined which pieces I need, I will cut them out using the paper scissors. Remember to never use fabric scissors on paper. After I cut the pattern paper, I will use those pieces to cut out the fabric. You can use the cutting layouts provided in the pattern, or you can make your own layouts, as long as you follow the instructions on the pattern paper. For example, if you need to cut something on a fold, then you need to remember to cut that on a fold. Or if you need to cut two, make sure to cut two. I will be creating my own layouts, as I tend to run out of fabric if I don't. I will also need to remember to cut notches here as well. I mark my dots with a fabric chalk later. Another thing I will need to remember to do is cut extra fabric for the lining, since I am using all of the same fabric. This is especially important with the sleeves, as I will need to cut 4 of them instead of 2. I will also need to remember to cut out the interface. Next, I will set up the machine. If you're not sure how to make a bobbin match your thread or how to thread the machine or bobbin, check out my sewing machine walkthrough video. I will be using mainly green thread on this part so that it matches the fabric. Try to always match your thread to the fabric unless you're wanting the thread to stand out or if it will not be seen. Now I'll begin following the instructions. Please know that I will not always follow the directions exactly, and that is okay. First, I will start with the front and the back. To start, I will reinforce the inner corners of the front pieces by sewing along the seam line for 1 inch on either side of the small dot. Then I will clip this to the seam allowance, being careful not to cut the stitching. Next, I will make the darts. There are a total of 4, 2 per side. 1 straight down the front and then 2 on the sides. So I will need to remember to do both. Then I will press the shoulder ones towards the back and the side ones down so that it is not clunky on the inside. After that, with the right sides together, I will sew the center back seam with the extension. This is step 1. Next, I will stay stitch 1/2 inch from the raw edge on the back pieces. Stay stitching prevents stretching and warping. Then I will make darts. Again, there are 2, 1 on either side of the shoulders. Also, I will press these towards the back so that it's not clunky on the inside. After that, with the right sides together, I will sew the 2 back pieces together. Off camera, I will press these seams open. This is step 2. Next, with the right sides together, I will pin the front and back pieces together at the shoulders and neck, matching the centers and dots. I will then sew this together. Then, I will trim the neck seam and clip the curves so that it rests naturally on my neck and back. Next, I'll press the seams open. After that, I will sew the side seams together. Again, off camera, I will press these seams open. This is step 3. Now I'll be working on the sleeves. To start, I will sew an ease top on the sleeve pieces all along the seam line. I will then put a second one 1/4 inch away from the previous one. This will help me fit the sleeves and the armholes together later. I'll also be removing these stitches when I have finished the sleeves. Next, I will put in darts. There are 4 total, 2 per sleeve, so I will need to remember to do all of them. I then press these down. After all of that, I will sew them together at the underarm seam. Off camera, I press these seams open. This is step 4. Next, I will turn the sleeves right side out. Then, with the garment inside out and the armhole towards me, I'll pin the sleeves on the garment, matching the seams, dots and notches. To make this fit, I will pull on the ease stitches from earlier. However, I will make sure that there are no puckers and tucks along the seam line. I then will hand baste this all in place so that it stays put when I sew it on the machine. When I have finished the sleeves, I will be removing these stitches as well. Next, I will sew this on the machine. The first stitching will be along the seam line. Then I will sew 1/8 of an inch from the previous stitching. Next, I will trim the seam allowance between the notches so that it is not so full under the arms. After all that, I will press the seams open. This is step 5. Next, I will try the jacket on and place the shoulder pads where it will look right and feel comfortable. I did this off camera as it was hard to pin the shoulder pads in place. I will pin the shoulder pads on the inside later. Next, I will catch stitch the shoulder pads in place. This is step 6. Next, I will trim the sleeves so that they're even along the ends. Then I will press them up 1.5 inches, creating the hem. After all that, I will catch stitch the hem in place. These stitches I will remove later. This is step 7. Now I'll be working on the facing. To start, I will apply the interfacing to the front facing by pinning the facing to the fabric. Then I will steam baste the edges in place. After that, with a damp cloth on top, I will press this in 15-second increments. Then I will reinforce the corners the same way I did on the front pieces. I will then clip this. Next, I will sew the inner curves 1/2 inch from the raw edge, basically putting in a stay stitch. Then I will sew the center back seam. Off camera, I press this seam open. Then I will clip around the curve, being careful not to cut through the stitching. This is step 8. Next, I will apply interfacing to the back facing. I will apply the interfacing to the front facing by pinning it to the fabric. Then I will steam baste the edges in place. After that, with a damp cloth on top, I will press this in 15-second increments. After all of this, I will sew the sections together. Off camera, I will press these seams open as well. This is step 9. Now I'll be working on the lining. First, I'll make the darts. There are 2, so I need to remember to do that twice. I will press these towards the back. Then I will make a pleat which is similar to a tuck that I made on the blouse from 2 weeks ago. I will bring the 2 lines I marked earlier together and sew along that line. Then I will press this pleat to one side or the other. It does not matter which side. After that, I will press 1/2 inch away from the raw edge, in essence putting in a stay stitch. Then I will clip along the edge, making sure not to cut the stitching. This is step 10. Next, I will make darts on the front piece. There are 2, so I will need to remember to do this twice. I will then press the darts down. Then, with right sides together, I will sew the front and the back together, first at the shoulders. Then I will sew them together at the side seams. This is step 11. Now I'll be working on the lining and facing together. To start, with the right sides together, I will pin the facing and the lining together along the front and lower edge, matching the back and side seams. I will then sew these together, leaving an opening at the back wide enough to turn the garment right side out. Next, I will clip the curves. After all of this, I will press the seams towards the lining. This is step 12. Next, I will make the sleeve linings the same way I did the sleeves. To start, I will sew an ease top on the lining pieces all along the seam line. I will then put a second one 1/4 inch away from the previous one. This will help me put the sleeves and the armholes later. Next, I will press in darts. There are 4 total, 2 per lining, so I will need to remember to do all of them. I press these down. After all of that, I will sew them together at the underarm seam. Off camera, I press these seams open. Next, I turn the linings right side out. Then, with the other part of the lining inside out and the armhole towards me, I'll pin the sleeves of the garment matching seams, dots, and notches. To make this fit, I will pull on the E-stitches from earlier. However, I will also try to make sure there are no puckers or tucks along the seam line. Then I will hand baste this all in place so that it stays put when I sew it on the machine. This I did in a white thread as I was running out of the green. I will be removing these stitches and the E-stitches later. Next, I will sew this on the machine. The first stitching will be along the seam line. Then I will sew 1/8 of an inch from the previous stitching. I'll not be putting in the hem at this point. Next, with right sides together, I will pin the front and back linings together, matching the notches, darts, and seams at the neck. Then I will sew this all in place. Then I will trim the seams and clip the curves. After all that, I will press the seams open and press the neck seam toward the collar. This is all step 13. Now I work on the lining and the main jacket together. With the right sides together, I will pin the facing to the jacket along the neck and front edges, matching all seams, dots, and notches. I will then hand baste the collar between the 2 notches. Then I will sew this on the machine as basted. To reinforce this, I will sew again over these stitches. Then I will clip the curves and dots, being careful not to cut the stitching. This is step 14. Next, I will understitch the collar and lapel pieces within 1 inch of the dot and stitching as close to the stitching as possible. This is step 15. Next, with the right sides facing each other, I will pin the remaining edges of the facing and jacket together. Then I will sew this all together. After that, I will trim the seams and clip the curves. This is step 16. Next, I will turn the jacket right side out using the opening I placed in the facing. Then I will press all of this. After that, I will slip stitch the lining and the jacket opening closed. This is step 17. Next, from the outside, I will pin the lining and sleeves together 5 inches away from the hem, matching seams. Then, I will trim the lining so that it is 1/2 inch longer than the sleeve. This is step 18. Next, I will press 1/2 inch under on the lining. I will then slip stitch the pressed edge to the sleeve. Then I will remove the pin and allow the lining to drop. This is step 19. Congratulations, you have a completed jacket. Here's what the jacket looked like on me without the rest of the outfit. Here it is with the blouse and skirt. If you would like to see how I made the skirt, check out the video from last week.
Now that you have the jacket, you are ready for the hair and makeup. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next project!